off earlier, maybe 5 or 6. So we already are in an imbalance, right? Unless you count sleep. And then how many times do you wake up thinking about work? So we are already in an imbalance. So that idea that there is a work-life balance is a myth. It's not about balance. It's about counterbalance. It's not about balance. It's about counterbalance. Let me give you an example. Several of you know I have a daughter that's getting married in about 3 weeks. Now, the week of that wedding, I need to be focused on what? The wedding. That's exactly right, John. The wedding. All right? Now, the 3 weeks leading up to that, what am I going to be focused on? Probably work, right? Probably work. My point is that there are points in your life where you have to be focused on whatever it is you have to be focused on. My daughter's getting married. My son or daughter are in a play. There's a huge tournament coming up I want to make sure I'm available for. Eating dinner every night in our house is a big deal, and I need to be there every evening. I don't know what it is. It's different for everybody. But you have to pick those things that are critically important, and those are the things you focus on in a counterbalance, because you can't focus on everything. The only people we ask to focus on everything are what? That's exactly right. Our mothers. Our mothers. Okay. But in all sincerity, you can't. How many of you have said, that just has to go this week, I can't get it done? That laundry is just going to get stacked up, I can't help it. Okay? So, but you have to find the counterbalance. The same is true at work. So if you're at work and you've got something big that's going on at home, then you may have to say to Paul, listen, this week I'm going to be in and out, and these are the 3 things that I believe I have to get done, and that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm just letting you know, because I can't be at those 3 meetings this week, because I need to be with my son or my daughter, or my mother's going to be in the hospital. It's counterbalance, guys. It's not a balanced life. It's counterbalance. So what do we need to do to make sure that we counterbalance when we need to? Because the big lie is there's such a thing as work-life balance. It's just not true, I'm sorry. So what else? Big idea. What did Kennedy say? We're going to put a man on the moon, right? Now, how many people knew how we were going to put a man on the moon? 0. I think he just had it in a dream one night and just said, we're going to put a man on the moon, right? I mean, seriously, nobody knew how that was going to happen, but everybody was committed to making it happen, because that was the big idea. That idea wasn't a small step. It wasn't like we're going to make sure we can circle around the moon and then come home. It wasn't we're going to do another couple of trips around around Earth. It was that we were going to put a man on the moon. It was a big idea. Like we talked about earlier, shoot big, even though you know, in fact, you might not hit it. But if you never set the target high enough, you'll never get there. So if someone had never said they believed it was possible, it wouldn't have happened. That's what having a big idea is about, is making something believable and then making it happen. I'll never forget it. I love Charlotte to death. So we're in a Christus meeting, and Highland had made some improvement on patient satisfaction and made some improvement, on associate satisfaction. And Charlotte stood up in the meeting and she told Chris Karam he better get ready, because Highland was coming after them and they were going to pass him. You did. But you did. They made that happen because they believed it was possible to happen. They made it happen because Charlotte set the goal big enough. Because that wasn't their target, by the way. It was much lower than that. But that's what they wanted to do, and they did it. And that's the example of what I'm talking about. You've got to set the idea large enough so that you can go after it and make it happen. So really, at the end of the day, you've got to have focus, right? In order for you to succeed, you've got to get a lot of that other stuff out of the way. You've got to have focus on what it is that you can accomplish. And sometimes focus is not brought by the answers to the questions. Focus is brought by the questions themselves. So one of the tasks or responsibilities that we have once we know what that one thing is to begin to ask the questions about what do we need to do to get there, and all the things that might impact us getting to that particular one thing. Because it's the questions that help to bring us focus. Here's a quote that I like. It says, "The secret to getting ahead is getting started. The secret to getting started is to break your complex, overwhelming task into small, manageable pieces and then start with the first one." Back to the domino effect. That was said, interestingly enough, by Mark Twain. So the question becomes, if we have to get focused, what is our one thing? Well, one way to figure out what our one thing is, or one way to manage to achieve our one thing, is what we talked about a second ago, and that's managing our calendar. How do we manage our calendar to get to the one thing? First of all, I'm going to tell you that you should dedicate 4 hours a day, every day, to that one thing. You should dedicate 4 hours a day, every day, to that one thing. The second thing you should do is you should block off your calendar in the morning, because that's when we're at our best. You should block off your calendar in the morning, because that's when we're at our best. So if you want to achieve that one thing and you're going to focus on it those 4 hours, you got to have the time to focus on it. You got to clear that out. So you got to put it on your calendar to make it happen. So if you focus on it 4 hours a day and you work 250 days a year, that's 1,000 hours. If we're successful when we do something over a period of time, you can begin to see how that would add up to make sure that we reach that one thing, and that we can then move on to what the next thing is that we need to do. The other thing about your calendar is, like I said, you have to take control of it. It's up to you. Make sure that you also put vacation on your calendar. I cannot tell you how many people I run into that are executives, and I have a conversation with them about where they are on their vacation, and they said, well, I'm going to lose 2 weeks of vacation. Whose fault is that? I've never left and come back and the work's not still be there, right? Inevitably, it's always there when you get back. The other thing you have to do in that 4 hours is you have to take, I don't have it, that little phone. It's not a flip phone, right? You have to take that phone and you have to set it aside. Because just like the computer on the desk, the phone is equally an interruption. Maybe a bigger one, because you're getting all the text messages too. All right? You have to set it aside. I know if you guys were under the age of 21, you'd be like walking out right now. Okay, I get that, all right? But the truth of the matter is, I'm telling you, you have to set it aside. How many of you have your phone in your bedroom? No. All right? I can give you every excuse of why you have it in your bedroom, including children and family and, et cetera, et cetera. You do not rest when you know that phone is in the room or when you hear it. Elliot was talking to me earlier today, and he said he woke up at 2 o'clock this morning, and what did he do? He picked up his phone. Now, in this case, it actually turned out to be good because someone had sent him a prayer request that was having surgery this morning. But the truth of the matter is, stick it in the kitchen, plug it in, and don't go see it until the next morning. It took me 3 years to figure that out. I'm a slow learner. Okay? But when I get home, my phone goes in the kitchen. It does not come anywhere else in our house. Because it's a discipline that you have to give yourself a break. We just talked about work-life balance. Work-life balance is walking away from the device and giving yourself a chance, okay? So you got to give yourself a chance. So schedule the time on your calendar. We're about dreams and making things happen in the morning. We're really about being a manager in the afternoon. Schedule all your meetings in the afternoon because you can keep one another awake. No, that's not why. Schedule the meetings in the afternoon because you actually thrive on one another, right? When you get in a meeting and somebody has an idea and somebody else has an idea, and if you're a social person, then that's a great time for you. So you can feed on one another. You don't need that feeding in the morning. You're pumped up enough, assuming you slept the night before and weren't listening to your phone. You're pumped up, right? So you're okay. So do it in the morning where you can make sure that you get it done. Okay. And then the last thing is there are 4 thieves to productivity. 4 things that would keep us from being successful as we focus on our one thing. I mentioned to you the inability to say no. So if we can't say no to people, then we'll never focus on our one thing. Number 2, fear of chaos. If you are working on your one thing and you are being creative, and if you are trying to figure it out, and if you are working step 1, step 2, step 3, there's going to be some chaos because you're not going to get there immediately. You're going to have to go on the journey. And so you have to be comfortable in living in that chaos. Some people